I would like to call the June 10th school board meeting of Tri-City United to order. We are located here in the high school band room. We find Kevin, Krista, Marcia, Michelle, myself here. Ashley, Josh were unable to attend tonight. Administrative report.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Busch. I'm going to hit maybe one or two from, or probably just one from each and move us along. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to read our monthly administrative report. It's always available each month. We have at our high school, one of the things that's new is our summer school started on Monday, June 3rd and runs through Thursday, June 27th. We have Mrs. Amy Alberg as the teacher and Mr. Eric Whip as the para. Something that we are doing a little different with this summer is we're piloting a couple of online courses to possibly eventually look at using with an extended day program, but we're offering math and chemistry through the online programming and seeing how that results and how it engages our students. To move on to our TCU La Center. Oops, went too far. Tomorrow, or Wednesday morning, I should say, will be the statewide PBIS Institute, and that went on Wednesday morning. The TCU La Center will be receiving the PBIS Exemplar Award, and then something that also got added after they indicated they'd be coming for the awards. They were also asked to be keynote speakers and to present at the Institute either Tuesday and Wednesday, so that's pretty exciting as well. At TCU Montgomery, we also have some presenters with the Summer Institute, which is tomorrow at the PDS Summer Institute. And Kyra Yoder, who is a school social worker, Danielle Glynn, elementary teacher, and Deb Dwyer presenting 2 sessions on mindful movement in the classroom. We have, I'd say, a little over 20 educators going, and a number of our educators are presenting. And the entire institute is focused on all means all. And so it's social emotional learning, mental health, restorative justice, just fabulous sessions, including districts from all over our region and as a partner of the PDS, which we are with Mankato. So that's very exciting. In our communications, Mrs. Crabb has been working on the fall catalog already and also on our district newsletter, amongst many other projects, and preparing for some of our engagement over the summertime. In community education, something new is our first summer preschool starting on June 18th. The sessions are 4 days, and did centrally locate them for this very first time. And this first session didn't quite run, but the second and third will run with the numbers we've had. So that's a good thing and encouraging and something new. In our business office, we highlight some of the work that Mrs. Maggie Grimm has been doing, obviously working with our health insurance open enrollment. That concluded on May 24th. And as you recall, as a board, you approved for us to be able to offer a voluntary dental benefit for the 1920 plan year, and we had 32 staff members sign up, which is about 10%. So thank you for providing that opportunity for our staff here at Tri-City United. In our special services, Mrs. Spessard attended a finance boot camp earlier this spring, and I know that she and Jean and Sue Toopy met with an MD Director of Finance, Paul Farron. It sounds like it was a very intense day on learning all about special ed finance, and it's a very complicated situation. I know that there's been a lot of talk, though, as well within the special education cross-subsidy, and it's important for us to really understand where the drivers are for that. Every district in the state of Minnesota has a cross-subsidy, which means you have your special education costs. The federal and state government do some reimbursement, but at a very small percentage. If you recall, the federal government indicated at the start, back in the 1970s, that they would fund 40% of special education costs. They have never reached higher than 18%. The state has some funding there as well. But anything that goes beyond that cost does come then from general fund or Fund 1 unassigned. And our cross subsidy is higher than our operating levies, and the 2 drivers that we're finding in the analysis really are transportation. You know, we are a large district and rather than duplicate programming, we have put some of our unique programming at each site, which then does mean we are transporting. And then also our number of students that we do need to access for higher level needs. And, we're kind of one of those size of districts where we're able to have some programming here for very high needs, and yet we aren't quite large enough to run the really high. And so with being a part of Southwest Metro, that is where some of those funds go. And so it's at least there was some cross-subsidy funding in the last legislative session to make sure to allow that the cross-subsidy doesn't increase, but it's not going to cause it to decrease at this time. But it at least got some traction at the state level, and that hasn't happened ever. So when you put it in that context, it sounds good and great. Within our TCU Lonsdale, something that was kind of different this year is our students participated in ACES Day, which is all children exercise daily. It did replace the spring track and field and gave the students a lot more variety of activities to be a part of, and had 13 movement stations, and it was pretty exciting for them. Summer food service is booming away. They talk about, that Amy, she is something, and our food service staff. We ended up students on the 21st. We started summer meals on the 22nd. They've done really well. Just so proud of them. And then our summer reading program, through our summer meals program, donating books for students to take or trade. And so I know they do that a variety of times in the summer. So if anyone does have some books they'd like to donate to enhance our students' literacy and reading opportunities, we greatly welcome that. So that's our monthly report.
Thank you very, very much. Next thing on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. We need to add, however, moving the work session to Lonsdale, away from Montgomery to Lonsdale on June 24th. So if you'll add that to it. Now I'll entertain a motion with that addition, or if there's anything else. I think that was the only thing.
That's the only thing.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Krista, seconded by Kevin. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries 5-0. Under the consent motion, we have, first of all, the approval of minutes from May 13th board meeting, May 28th special board meeting. Under personnel, new hires, Shane Benz, 912 high school, 5'8" TCU Montgomery, choir director, 6th grade general music. Emily Lehman, 0.5, 6th grade in Lonsdale. Kathy Bakke, Bakke, thank you. 0.5, 2nd grade Montgomery. Jolene Busch, 0.5, 6th grade Montgomery. Renae Chappuis, head volleyball. Shaun Timmerman, co-head wrestling and assistant wrestling. Norgren, co-head wrestling, assistant wrestling. Carey Langer, spirit advisor for Snow Week. Erin Winters, assistant speech coach. Andrew Meier, behind the wheel instructor. Julie Zimmerman, the SFSP assistant cook in the center. Candace Lewis, senior high lead preschool teacher. Under employment ending, Phil Murray, varsity softball. Tiffany Crabb, marketing and communication specialist, and also junior high golf coach. Robin Rutt, Braillis. Nicole Jacobs, ECFE, school readiness. Angie Farley, ECFE, school readiness. Recommendation for tenure, Sarah Costello, TCU Lee Center and TCU High School. Carey Langer, TCU High School. Gretchen Lilly, TCU High School. Brooke Fisher, TCU Montgomery. Amanda Messenbring, TCU Montgomery. Elaine S., TCU Montgomery. Elizabeth Carr, TCU Lee Center. Christina Grasser, TCU Lee Center. Amy Sokowski, TCU Lonsdale. Approval of the bills in the amount of $1,671,009.88, and the approval of the finance report. I will entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Chairman Busch?
Yep.
It appears for some reason from the agenda that you have there and the agenda that's here is that it appears Rebecca Pauly was missed as a junior high volleyball coach. So we may want to add her to that consent agenda.
Sure. Thank you. Rebecca Pauly should be added as volleyball coach. It was on the other one that I had it on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Anything else? I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make the, go ahead. I'll make the motion.
Motion by Michelle,
I'll second it.
second by Marcia. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
I'd just like to make a quick comment as well within the consent agenda. You know, as we always value and appreciate our staff who've been serving with us, do want to recognize as Phil Murray has chosen, or will employment ending, or is choosing to resign as varsity softball coach. He certainly coached for 20 plus years and did a great job. And we also wish the best to Tiffany Crabb, who is going to be moving back to Wisconsin to be near family and everything, the difference she's made within our marketing and communications. And that does not diminish the work of anyone else's employment who's ending, and just ones that are sometimes district-wide that people kind of get to know a little bit more.
Thank you very much. Titan Pride Awards.
Well, I believe that these Titan Pride Awards went for the AVID program either throughout the district, or were they mainly at TCU Montgomery? Mr. Eppen, are you aware of that aspect?
Montgomery, so I believe it's true.
All right.
Yep.
Well, then you know what? I'm going to take care of it.
All right,
How's
super,
that?
great.
I never get to do this. Well, I know that as the spring came around and there was a number of AVID activities taking place, and some of those were on field trips, some of those were service projects and all of those kinds of things. And Mr. Greg Fedema, who is one of our AVID elective teachers at TCU Montgomery, reached out to a number of different organizations across our district, and was very pleased and appreciative to have earned or have gained some donations for those activities. And you'll also see those on our donations action item tonight, which is new for our school district. And I think one of the things that really strikes me more and more here as Tri-City United and our communities working together is when we're seeing service groups or entities that are kind of homed or housed, so to speak, out of one community who are still donating across the whole district. And we're seeing that more and more. And even, I realize this isn't about this Pride Award, but something that was very new this year and really, again, another sign of collaboration was how our American Legions work together to be able to time things so that our high school students were able to get from one community to another in a timely way and not be running late. And so, again, just great, just a very unifying, strong messages. So we'd like to thank and appreciate very much the donations made by the Le Center Community Club, and I believe Mr. Chris Collins is here as a representative from the Community Club. So if you'd be willing to come on up so that we can publicly recognize and thank you so much for your service to our district. We appreciate it.
Very much.
Thank you.
Some other groups that did a donation were the Sheriff's Country Youth Project from LeSueur County. And again, that was for our AVID program and our donations for that. So I don't think there's anyone here, but we're representing that group, but we certainly are appreciative to them. And also to the Le Center Lions Club for AVID program donations, and how fortunate we are. So again, thank you to all of those. Appreciate it.
Good evening, school board members, Dr. Presley. I'm honored to be able to also do a Titan Pride Award. In the past, I've done it just for those donations from Palmer West for the high school. But this year, I worked with Kayla, the district office, and we decided to pull in all the donations. for the whole district. So that follows up nicely what Dr. Pricer said. Palmer Bus is sharing the wealth across the district. Everything from ACT testing, as you probably know, we've done that many times, to young kids programs. We have our mental health programming in February, and Palmer Bus donates the shuttle from the center building over to the Montgomery K-8 building for that presentation. And there's numerous other things. All told, I think there's 10 different donation items this year, totaling right around $3,000 that Palmer Bus donated the time and the busing for, including graduation. That graduation shuttle, more and more every year, more and more people are using that, going, wow, this is pretty nice. I get dropped off on the curb, I get picked up at the curb, and I can not have to deal with the traffic problem. Pat did call me this afternoon and said he would not be able to make it tonight, and Belinda Gale was also not available, but he wanted to express to me how nice it is for us to be recognizing them, our bus carrier. So, all the bus company. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Federer. Open forum. Anything? Moving on then to informational items. Workforce Development Coordinator update. Corey Odlin.
Yeah, I would like to welcome Corey and Scott Palava, who are here to share some of the, I don't think they have, maybe, I'll find out.
I have a flash drive, I already have a computer, which is easier.
Share a bit on some of the things that have been accomplished and are in the works for the future within our Workforce Development Coordinator position across our district.
All right. Well, that's getting up. Thank you for having me, inviting me to give an update. I know when I met with the board earlier, I talked a little bit about who I was and about the position and what we were hoping to do, some of the information I was giving to employers. And so once we get I just have a couple slides here. PowerPoint up, I'll share just some of the progress in the few months that I've been working.
Sometimes our board computer doesn't like PowerPoint.
Yeah, that's all right. I should have done Google Slides or something.
No, that's all right.
Carl will figure it out.
I can certainly go without my slides too.
Pardon me?
I can certainly share without my slides too. It's all right.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead? We'd love to hear you talk.
Sure. Sure.
No, you've always been so thorough. And you've certainly been doing a lot of presentations that are just both formal and off the cuff and informal
Yeah.
and with individual meetings. So.
And I can certainly punt if we can't get the slides. That's all right. So really the first slide I had was talking a little bit about my goals for when this position started early on for this abbreviated school year. So starting in January. And it was really to meet with administrators, meet with teachers and counselors, and start meeting with employers, which is a big part of this job. And so that's really where I've spent my time. sorry, see if it's coming up, is meeting with those groups. And so if we take it as groups of administrators, I have sort of a lead person at each of the districts. So again, a reminder that I'm working with Tri-City United School District as well as LeSueur Henderson and St. Peter. So meeting with those administrators early on to find out what the needs of the schools are, what their hopes were for this position, and also to find out a little bit what's already been done. With those administrator meetings, we've started meeting when we can monthly. A lot of times administrators get pulled in other directions very quickly, and so we try our best to meet monthly. We're working on getting a meeting already here in June to really start talking about the 2019-2020 year, talking about kind of big picture vision, as well as when the grant is over, transition and sustainability. So having a kind of a big picture meeting this summer. As far as meeting with counselors and teachers, I met with all the counselors at each school to talk a little bit about how they connect with students and how we could maybe learn about what the students are interested in as far as opportunities for career. But really my main focus with staff has been meeting with the career and technical educators at each school. So we also have a monthly meeting where we meet and I share with them what the employers are interested in. I share with them ideas. We talk about what might work, how that might fit into what they're currently doing in the classrooms. The other thing with the administrators, sorry, I'm a little off on what I was going to say without that visual, is I do send a bi-weekly summary. So every other week I send them a summary. Here's the employers I've met with, here's the feedback I'm getting, here's the challenges, here's some ideas, and so we communicate that way too between the 3 districts. And then getting out and meeting with the employers. And so I've had probably around over 75 contacts that I've communicated with, over 40 different companies or organizations, and then that has resulted in over 30 tours of facilities. And that doesn't include the chambers that I've met with, the EDA boards, Rotary clubs, and other nonprofits and higher ed institutions that do similar work with trying to do career-related experiences. So some of the outcomes from this work, one thing that we were able to implement this year, trying something new, is when I was working with Cambria, they asked if they could do some tabling. And tabling is a really common term in higher ed, and that's kind of where my background is higher ed, where anybody who wants to will set up a table in a college, and it could be a student organization, it could be a business, it could be a graduate school. So they said, hey, we'd really like to table in a high school. And TCU graciously, Mr. Eppen said, hey, let's give it a try. So Cambria came in over the lunch periods in April and tabled, and they talked with 80 students, TCU students. And they felt that was, their feedback was they loved it. It was a great use of their time. They were able to, yeah, thank you. So there's kind of my goals: meet with administrators, teachers, and employers. A little bit about what I was sharing about the number of employers that I've met with, and then some of the outcomes here. So they came into TCU schools, tabled, met with a lot of students. So they felt really great about that small period of time for them out of their work week to be able to meet with that many students and just share the kind of opportunities that they have at their facility and to talk with students and introduce Cambria. So then we did it at LeSueur schools and St. Peter schools, and they saw 50 students at each of those schools too. So they really thought that was a really good use of their time. We also tried that with Seneca. Seneca came in, they had a very specific position that they were trying to fill. Unfortunately that day, a little miscommunication I think on my part, a lot of the students that they maybe would have targeted were off doing something else for that day, but they said, you know what, it's a great way to get in and start talking to students. So that's one thing that we tried. We've also had some very specific position descriptions. The picture up there is for Minnesota Millwork in Lonsdale. Randall Rivers was hoping to come tonight and share a little bit also, but wasn't able to get back from a trip. So they have a position description, and we're hoping to get a student connected with for the fall, where that student will take a project from start to finish, working with the people that do that job every day. And so we're hoping to get that. So position descriptions from employers for opportunities. Summer manufacturing experience is something we're doing in St. Peter, and I see myself as sort of a regional workforce development coordinator, so anything we get done and try in one of the other schools, we can go ahead and try and replicate in the 2 other school districts. So summer manufacturing experience, what they asked for, a teacher and their counselor that I worked with, is those who took intro to metalworking and those who are signed up for intro to metalworking in the fall. We're taking them next week on a tour of 3 different businesses, and they're going to, just small groups of 2, get to shadow different areas of those businesses. So that's one thing we're doing. Fall tours, I think this is where I'll call Scott, who is willing to come share with me, Palava. We talked a little bit in meeting with employers, especially in the Lonsdale area. How do we get students over there, and not to take away from something like tour of manufacturing, which is really big in our region, but to have students really see some of the businesses in the towns that they live in. And so Scott, I don't know if you want to share maybe a little bit about what you have been working on.
So my name is Scott Palava. I'm with Lonsdale Auto Works. I'm also a member of the EDA in Lonsdale and a city council member. At the EDA meeting, Corey came to our EDA meeting and kind of briefly explained what we were looking at, and Randall Rivers and I discussed that it would be cool to come over and see what the school had to offer in the, what I always called industrial technology or ag, however you want to call it, and see what was offered and see how we can reach out or make a connection to these youth that maybe they haven't been exposed to these things. So we came over and we met with Mr. Fitterer, Mr. Eppen, and Mr. Head, and I think there was a few other individuals. I don't remember specifically. But we hung out for a while and we had a pretty good conversation. And Randall actually brought up a question. He says, what could we do to have students come and tour our facilities? And he used mine and his as an example. And so the subject matter came up that, very big hurdle is transportation cost. So Randall and I agreed that we would sponsor it. We would cover the transportation cost. For the cost of a bus versus what we pay to advertise for positions and interview people and all that stuff, we'd be money ahead in the long run if we can have an exposure for a few $100s. So we decided to do that, and in further discussion, the area that we are in, Randall's business, Minnesota Millwork, is a few hundred yards from mine. We're in the Lonsdale industrial area. We discussed it further and we realized that we have construction in this industrial area, we've got trucking, manufacturing, printing, we have aerospace companies and all these things. So I started trying to play Mike Rowe of the Lonsdale area, and I met with I think at this point 10 businesses, including the Lonsdale Public Works Department. So we would like to schedule a tour in the fall for, I believe it was juniors, to come visit and kind of do a round robin of the various different types of industries. I mean, that things that oftentimes we hear, the youth they don't know what's out there. We have a company in Lonsdale that makes molds for aerospace components. Weirdest thing on earth when you're thinking about it. They don't make the aerospace component, they make the mold. And when I was talking to the owner there, he says, I want high school graduates. I don't need college degrees. And these people make a lot of money because we train them for what we need. And they've been with them for a long time. So it's that type of a thing. So every business I visited, they all want to be on board. They want to do it every year. And we haven't even done it yet, but they want to do it every year for constant exposure. So that's what I've been working on, actually just the past few weeks.
Yeah, so I appreciate Scott doing some of the legwork in Lonsdale. So we'll work with the school to decide, what age group and what day and how we can make this happen. And is it just in Lonsdale? Do we do the same thing in Montgomery, La Center, and what this might look like? So we'll work on that over the summer and see what we can implement in the fall. So I appreciate you taking the time to come in. A couple other things. Stacy, the business teacher here, for her intro to business class is going to require a job shadow for the fall. So I believe she has 38 students maybe. So that's another thing I'm working on this summer, is getting those job shadows set up for her accounting, human resources, marketing management, for the students to be able to do this fall. And then project-based learning, another thing that we did in another school. It was all just in the right timing. I had an employer and a teacher willing to partner together. So we actually worked with Kerfoot Canopy Tour in Henderson. The employer came in, presented to the class about, it was an entrepreneurship class, rewards and challenges of being an entrepreneur, shared about his career path, and then he gave them a marketing project to work on. And so those students worked on a marketing project, went out to the business, got to tour the business a little bit, and then pitched the marketing ideas. So again, something that we could easily replicate in other communities if it fits well into the curriculum and everything kind of lines up that way. So, and then lastly is just relationship building. I've heard from a lot of employers that they really like having somebody that they can contact, like a main contact with this liaison role, because our teachers are in the classroom all day doing really great work teaching our students. And so when we talk about relationship building, like Scott said, we met at the EDA, and then I went to Lonsdale Auto and visited and toured, and then they came and toured here, and now we're working on a project together. So it's all about being able to put that time and energy into it. So my last slide here, wrong clicker, oops, maybe, it's just some things that I hope for 2019, 2020. Again, I'll be working with the leaders from each community. So the first one there, implement seamless work-based learning. Myself with the 3 districts I work with and the Mankato district, Perkins has put some money towards a management system called Seamless Work-Based Learning, where we will be able to track the different kinds of engagement teachers do with their students. Employers will be able to create accounts and post positions. And having worked with similar systems in higher ed, one thing I asked when we were deciding on this system, it's a new system, is that there's a student portal. Because if students can't access it and find opportunities for job shadows and internships and work-based learning, I personally don't know that it's a super effective tool, and they are going to do a student portal in August. That'll be up and ready to run. So that's one thing I want to make sure that gets implemented into the 3 districts. I think finding ways for parent education, for positions that are right outside of high school, for apprenticeship, for technical, for four-year, for all of the different opportunities that students have post-graduation. I think there could be some room for parent education. I think the idea of taking these positions that we're getting from employers and connecting them to students is going to be really key in working with the people who are student-facing, like the teachers and counselors and principals. But I think, too, with that focus on that lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion, how do we make sure those opportunities are available for everybody that are eligible for them? And if there's barriers for students, how do we help students work through those? And so getting that information to everybody. And then positive experiences, which sounds really simple, but I think if employers can have a positive experience, students can have a positive experience, and teachers can have a positive experience, that one day job shadow might turn into an internship later on. How can we engage a little deeper? And so I hope a year from now I'm coming back with stories, with quantitative data, as far as true engagement numbers with our students and employers. So that's what we've got.
Any questions for Corey?
Corey, where do you find that you're spending most of your time? I mean, in all of the communities equally? Are you finding that, right now I'm spending more time here?
Yeah, I think there's weeks where I feel a little St. Peter heavy or a little LeSueur heavy or a little, Montgomery heavy, but I think it all balances out. I'm trying to be pretty strategic about the businesses I go out to. I mean, they can be small businesses, they can be large businesses, but for the purpose of the grant, at least for right now, how do they fit into the career and technical education areas that we have? Manufacturing, IT, healthcare, family and consumer science, business, that type of thing. I'd love to think beyond CTE also. There's a lot of places that say, oh, we could work in your science classes. The place that I met with in Henderson, he's willing to work with any school. He said it could be entrepreneurship. It could be an outdoor education class. He said it could be a psychology class. We could talk about, how our guides work with fear and anxiety. And so, I think I think it can really expand, but right now my focus has primarily been on the CTE areas, so.
Well, I understand that Central Healthcare Center has worked their way to being able to have experiences for our students there through the high step.
Yes.
Is that in place for next year then? Or?
My understanding is Gwen Walters is working on that since she works with the Health Science Academy, but they also are willing to have students do other things there, other types of job shadows and training and things like that. So, but my understanding is that is moving forward.
Okay. I wasn't sure how you and Gwen were preparing on that, or
Yeah.
or just at least communicate, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, yep, we do communicate about that.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you for the work you've done.
Both of you very much for coming tonight. Next, QComp report. Mr. Flugum, please.
Superintendent Preisler, members of the board, thank you very much for the time to give our QComp end-of-year report. This is a requirement by MDE. Oh, I have company.
Yeah,
You're coming up here this time. Welcome.
We're going to
Usually
support
this
from
and that.
here.
So QComp, and if I can pull up, remember to double-click this time. There it is. So QComp is basically a professional development structure within Tri-City United Schools. We work with the ATPPS, Alternative Teacher Professional Pay System, that's been in the state for quite a while, as well as the TD&E, the Teacher Development and Evaluation statutes, to support our teachers in growth in as many ways as we can, and to make sure that as we plan and as we move forward in professional development, that we're giving our teachers the best that we can give them. Parts of these include job-embedded staff development, which is both the early releases that we have as well as collaborative learning team times where our teachers take a look at where our students are and how to best support them moving forward. We have a peer review that is done by statute in TD&E, and we provide individual coaching and support individual coaching for that, as well as a portfolio that focuses on a targeted instructional strategy, some kind of a research-based strategy that teachers are interested in looking into in order to support student growth and student development throughout the year. Within our early release development, we have focused on our guaranteed and viable curriculum, making sure that we have time, structures, and places for our teachers to meet and collaborate together, as well as site-based staff development might include something like AVID. We've had some other initiatives with Universal Design for Learning and a few others that might take some of that early release time to get teachers a little bit deeper into those structures, systems, and implementation. At the beginning of last year, we switched from a peer evaluation system where our teachers would watch each other through videotape and then rate each other based on the evaluation scale to a portfolio. And the reason that we did that was our teachers felt that the evaluation system was a little bit too restrictive. They didn't feel comfortable rating each other. And so we switched to this system of portfolio because it really develops them in growth and reflection on what they do, how they do it, and how they can improve in the classroom. Each year, Minnesota Department of Education asks us to receive feedback through a survey and then report out to the board. So this is part of that. We give the survey and have a 5-scale rating from little impact to highly impactful. We ask the questions on what is the impact of our QComp systems on supporting teacher reflection and instructional improvement within the classroom. This year, what came back was our individual coaching did rise from 72% last year to 79% of our teachers in that 4 and 5 category. And then in our collaborative learning teams, we held pretty steady from 2018, 75% saying this really helps me in reflection and instructional improvement as well as my growth. So that was at 74% this year. In the portfolio, we ask teachers to focus on one strategy through the course of the year. That doesn't mean that's all they do or all they learn, but we do ask them to go really in depth with one strategy so that they can gain the most benefit and their students gain the most benefit about what they incorporate. Some of the strategies that more than a few of our teachers are focusing on are student conferencing. So instead of a whole class lesson, focusing on individual one-on-one conferencing with the student as to where they are, what supports they might need, and really developing the student as a learner. Differentiation, making sure that we meet the needs of all students, that our students have an opportunity to learn in multiple ways and show their learning in multiple ways. Reciprocal teaching is a small group strategy where students learn together. Each has a different job and an objective, and then they come to class and they work together to accomplish that. We had more than a few teachers working on AVID strategies. Two examples that were really highly represented here were Socratic Seminar, which is a directed discussion within the class, where there's a bunch of different models, but the basic idea is that students all come around an idea of a topic, they report out, and then they have some support from other students in order to help them reach a conclusion or to just really deeply examine an issue. Philosophical chairs, focuses in on identifying where a student might stand and then supporting that with evidence. So they might ask a question where one side of the room is a yes or one side is a no, and students then go within where they believe they are and then have a small debate about why they believe that they are there, why they think what they think. Student self-reflection is another big one and has been for multiple years, supporting students to understand where they are in learning and where they can go. And then we do have quite a few teachers focusing in on academic language and supporting students in understanding how to accomplish the types of tasks that they're being asked to accomplish in the classroom. Our teachers identify at least 5, or they could go over 5 artifacts within how they do that. One of them is strategy research. So they look into how is this done in other classrooms, what has been written about, and what kind of research exists to support this as a best practice strategy. We do ask every teacher to do an analysis of student work within that strategy so that they can gain a better understanding of where each student is and what next steps might need to be taken within that learning task. One popular one with our teachers is discussion with another educator. And this is a focused discussion where they bring up, here's the strategy I'm trying, have you tried it, how's it gone? We try to help support them with the time to do that, but also with that structure of, here are some of the educators who have been accomplishing this. And this is something that we were asked to do a little more on this summer, is develop a resource that shows which strategies different educators have been focusing in on. So somebody might be looking to do one of the strategies they've done before. They know who to go to that might be the expert in that. Focused observation is with analysis of student work as required by state, and that is where one of our live trained observers, we have trainings 3 times a year for our coaches, who are then trained observers, go into the classroom, script evidence of something, say the questions the teacher asked and what level those questions were at, or how many students were on task and engaged at a specific lesson or a specific time, or even how long did the teacher wait between asking a question, letting students think, to give the answer to the question. And we also offer coverage for our teachers to go in to observe another teacher. That might be in conjunction with that discussion of another educator to see the model of what's going on in that classroom and how to incorporate that strategy. You can see here a couple of artifacts. These are from portfolios that educators were comfortable sharing. This would come from the research. So this is a tool that this educator was using to promote reflective self-assessment in other educators. And then there's a continuum that this educator decided they would help as they mentored to support teachers in reflection. On the right-hand side, you can see some of our educators really go in depth with this research piece. It's not, I'm going to jump into a blog, but really, what's the research behind what I'm doing? How do I do it best? How have other educators accomplished it as well? In the analysis of student work, on the left-hand side here, one of our educators used Google Forms for students to create an assessment. And the students, they use that as a review tool. So instead of the instructor creating multiple forms of quizzes, each student created their own quiz, shared it with some other students within the class, and then they had an opportunity to go back and forth. And that really gets deep into what the student really understands about that. And you can see in this Google form, they had pictures, they had videos, they had images, and then those went back up to the terms and the ideas involved. On the right-hand side, artifact 2 for this educator was 3-column notes, and you can see the 3 columns in the notes. And this is where she identified then where that student was in terms of being able to take those notes and at what depth of knowledge those notes came to for that student. So she could then design the next steps for that student. And then within our focused observations, you can see here some evidence of the scripting that might be involved. You can see a time, as well as what's going on with the different student groups. You can see here the questions that a student asked right here, as well as how that teacher responded to that. And this teacher responded to the question with a focusing question to move forward. So there's a couple of focused observations. What we found was, from the survey and from our work with our coaches at the end of the school year this year, features to keep, job-embedded professional development. So the idea that we're learning together and we're learning as we go through our job. Individual coaching has always been high, and that was a high keep the coaching piece, and collaborative teams as well, that we have an opportunity to look at the data that our students are bringing forward, their assessment data, their connections within classroom, and then we can learn from each other. And our teachers meet weekly to do that, either on a Tuesday morning or a Wednesday afternoon. As well as the portfolio with the targeted strategy, that we're asking teachers to focus on one thing and really go in depth. That came through loud and clear as well in our data. Some things to clarify this year, a little bit similar to last year, but a few changes. Strategies and research-based resources, there's always a need for more. What can we use? What do we know is best practice? Who can we go to for help on this? If I get stuck with this student, how can I get the help and support to move forward with that student? Inside the collaborative teams, clarification of what happens within those teams, when those teams might meet or occur. And this happens especially with our specialists on the WHO side. How can I make sure that I'm supporting educators? So the speech-language pathologist, knowing which group they might need to be at that time to best support students and to best support teachers as they move forward. Our coaches identified even more support with states of mind in supporting teachers from where they are to where they might want to be. So where might they be stuck? How can we move them forward? And then we had a request for clarifying our rubric language and tying it to our evaluation rubric so that it's really clear as we work on the planning piece of our portfolio, it's going to this part of the evaluation rubric that our administrators might use for feedback as well. So we really tie our systems together tightly. And that's the outcomes of our survey. Thank you. Any questions?
You kind of answered mine, I think, at the end when you said that some of this is used for when there are like performance reviews by administration. So that was my question. So this is tied into that when you have that peer coaching, that individual coaching.
It is available to be used. Not every educators use. The statute states that in the 3-year summative that has to occur for every tenured teacher, that this information can be used as long as the teacher says, here it is. Okay. And we have, I think, and maybe I shouldn't say, I know that we have some educators who use this portfolio as part of their yearly evaluation structure. So it can be used. I can't say that it's used 100%. That's really up to the individual educator.
Any other ones? Thank you. Thank you very much. Super job. Year-end activity report. Chad?
Dr. Preissler, members of the board. Let's see if I can figure this out here. Okay, end of the year activities and athletics report. First of all, I kind of went on what Jason did last year, so many of you have already seen this, so you will see a lot of comparisons between last year and this year. I think for future years, if there's other things that interest you or that you would like to see, obviously let me know and I can do that, but for the first year I just used comparisons from year to year. So starting out in the beginning, fall sports participation. If you look, the blue is always going to be last year's stuff and the red is going to be this current school year or season. We increased participation in 4 events and declined in 2. I think that's probably the emphasis of what this report is, and what I look at the most is, are we going in the right direction or not? And obviously the class sizes, grades 9 through 12 make a big impact on that, but four of them, our participation numbers went up and 2 declined in the fall season. Moving on to the winter season, we had 3 that declined and 2 that rose as far as participation numbers. None of them very drastically, but girls basketball is one that had the biggest drop off, but obviously you all know that I'm on year 1 here, so it's hard to know history and too much about it, but I'll be able to add more to those things as we go. Girls hockey, we still are at zeros along with in the fall soccers, but those will obviously be things we'll have numbers to start putting in our future. We do have a pretty good number of girls in the youth hockey. On to spring, we had 4 sports that rose in numbers and 2 declined. So looking at the year in total, we end up having 10 sports with increased numbers of participation and 7 in decline participation. So overall, school-wise, we're probably going in the right direction. Some of these are individually based. A lot of it's based on a graduating class. The classes behind, sometime if they were sitting on the bench long enough, they chose not to stick with it. So it's hard to go off of 1 year's numbers, but it'll be something that we'll be able to look at for the bigger picture. This is total number of male activities based on ethnicity. This was, again, obviously something that was done by Jason in the past year. So blue is last year and red is this year. Again, we're increasing for the most part. We're kind of a 2 ethnicity school for the most part, but the other ones are pretty small in numbers. But those are the choices the kids are given to identify themselves on when they register. So some of them consider themselves mixed. Our total female numbers, as you can see, they rose as well in both our 2 major areas. So we're doing well female-wise, and this is a total school. These are not duplicated numbers, so if we're talking about a 3-sport athlete, they're only listed here 1 time. So when we start talking about whether they're activities, and this is all activities between Knowledge Bowl, speech, 1-act play, or sport. So when these are all activities participation numbers, which we're at 58% of our school participates in extracurriculars. Last year the number was 52. So we're, again, our numbers seem to tell us we're going in the right direction, at least increasing those things. Total students in our school by ethnicity, and as you see, if you look here, just kind of comparing 395 and 409, for example, this is the total number of kids. So as you see, there's a larger percentage of males that are out for sports than there are of females, but this is where we sit numbers-wise in our students by ethnicity in our school. This here is our activities. Basically covers all of them. As you'll see, our art team, the FFA, and trap shooting are our 3 major activities. We did drop in 1, actually dropped in 2, and then we rose in trap shooting. But overall, in this whole document, sorry, I keep fidgeting here and adding extra lines, but 12 of them rose in participation and 6 of them declined in this whole chart here. So some of them by 1 or 2, but there are some by a little bit bigger numbers. But that, I know you have this. If you have any questions on any of them and things I can maybe add or answer to tell you why those numbers are where they're at, and I can give you my input anyway. Moving on to highlights, just overall, just so everybody knows, district football, we do not have all conference, which is something everybody's familiar to hearing. We don't have that. Football is in district. So we had 9 academic all conference athletes. We had 3 all district football participants and 23 all conference participants. So our all conference numbers are very good. We finished the second year of our Positive Coaching Alliance. The third year is totally based on leadership of captains and seniors. So what you're used to, a fall sports meeting of us having a speaker and those kind of things, that is not part of Positive Coaching Alliance for next year. Next year they come in 3 times and they'll give individual, they'll have meetings with our seniors, and we started that a little bit this year. I had in this room, I did a thing called a breakfast club and met with, some of your kids were here. But we met here, had some discussions, talked about leadership things, and that's next year what they'll do as part of the Positive Coaching Alliance. We kind of started it this year as a beginning of what they're going to get used to next year. Swimming and diving won their first ever meet. That was a pretty exciting time this last year, so that was fun. And we held our first ever weightlifting meet here, and we are going to obviously host again next year, and I think we're hosting 2 swim meets next year. So we're growing, and that's always fun. Our performances, we had the 3 of them, Mary Poppins, the other room, and the fearsome pirate Frank. Just so everybody has an idea, or most of you probably already know, but we will do the fall musical in Montgomery Middle School again next year. And then our hope is to have the one-act play here at the new facility. So hopefully we pack the house for our one-act play. But we had one of our students, Aria Mink, was selected to the All-State Honors Band, and Carolyn Michael was selected to the All-State Choir. That is it's a pretty elite honor. They both will go to a 1-week camp this summer with a bunch of other band and choir kids and do some pretty fascinating things. And so we're looking forward to that, and they give some public performances as well. So those are pretty elite honors, some of the higher ones that we have in our school. Our FFA teams, obviously we have a very successful FFA program, and 2 of them placed in the top 3. Sometimes it's hard when you do Titan Prides and those kind of things, because we have so many people place and so many go to state. So we've kind of gone more to hitting the people that are, and if you're in college, All-Americans or top 8 place winners. So that's kind of what I use as my guide. So we had 2 of them place 3rd place this year. Our Excel Award winner was Brandon Balma, and he actually was one of the state choices for the Excel Award winner. So he was recognized at the state basketball tournament this year. Ellie Singleton was our girls representative, and Sam Barnack and Keely Oak were our AAA award winners, which is, these 2 awards are the 2 highest recognizable awards that Minnesota State High School League offers. Adding on, we had 4 state torch awards at the BPA and 10 state place winners in BPA. 4 of our people were recognized as a Spotlight Award at the Arts Festival, so that was pretty fantastic. 8 superior ratings in band, and 8 superior in choir, and 2 in Best in Sight. Cade and Carter, most of you have hopefully heard them. They're kind of those rare people that come around. They're both pretty fantastic. And some of our individual sports people, or not necessarily all sports. Hugo Ruiz went to state in cross country. Jackson Nesmo just finished a state track meet this last weekend in pole vault. We had a couple state participants in speech, with Isabella finishing 7th. Our weightlifting is pretty dynamic, as you can see, with having state champions and state runners up that we have. It's not a major recognized sport across the state, but it is pretty good for those kids that participated. 2 teams qualified for the state tournament, our boys hockey and our adapted hockey, and they actually finished 3rd. And then 2 of our teams, the gear train and team undecided, also qualified for robotics. So overall, a pretty successful season in the athletics and fine arts. And like I say, if there's other things that you would like to see in this report year end, please let me know. But this was a little comparison between the 2 years. I know it's a lot of numbers, so if you have any questions, definitely ask. Questions you have right now, though? Anybody?
Great numbers.
Yeah.
Really appreciate the report.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chad, very, very much. Building project update, Superintendent Preisler and Carl.
Dr. Preisler, members of the... Oh, go ahead.
Do the talking.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Preisler, members of the board, members of the TC communities, I'm Carl Menk, Director of IT and Facilities for TCU, and it is time for our monthly update, one of my favorite times of the month. And this month we have a number of things that come close on the heels of your tours. And if I can ask a question of you, during the tour of the high school auditorium and the classroom additions, what struck you each as you walked through the space? What was your first thought?
It's big.
Yeah.
The size. The size just stuck out. I mean, we hear it, we see it, but you're seeing on paper, but to actually walk into some of those rooms and see how large that 4 classrooms that are all right next to each other that we're going to be able to open up and the things we can do, it's so exciting.
Yeah, so we've been looking at the pictures, right, every month, and you don't get a sense of the scale. And that's something that you can tell by my shoes here, right? Every morning I get to do a walkthrough and I can sense that scale as things are coming together, and it's really neat. It's wonderful to be in these spaces. So without further ado, on our Lonsdale site, what you're seeing here is the nano walls, which are those learning walls that connect the 2 classrooms together. And you can see that the color scheme is coming together with the floor, the tile, the VT, some of the cabinetry and casework is in place here. This is about 60% done in the rooms as far as casework, carpeting, and tile. We've got 4 rooms that were left to have those floor coverings yet done today. This is the tile work in the washing area, which is turning out just fabulous. I really like the schema that our architects and engineers and our design teams put together for that. Here you can see the lighting is now on, and they've done the above the ceiling inspection, which is required before we can actually drop those ceiling tiles in to make sure all the mechanical, electrical, and above ceiling elements are safe and up to code. A quick 2-week look ahead: roofing and parapet cap, champagne metal trim and finishing, sheetrock over thresholds and transitions areas. Art room steel stud is in place. We've got rough-ins and wall prep being done in that space to receive some of the new fixtures in the art room. Carpeting and patching in the media center and transition strip, new carpet and VT, and clay and ceramic tile. That was that picture that you saw in the hand washing area, restroom area. Classroom punch list will begin and close out process here in the next 2 weeks. Punch lists are developed in combination with our architects and also the contractors, and we put that together and scrutinize all of the finish and fit and form that we need to. The commons grid and ceiling is going to be going in very shortly. Classroom technology installations will come in once the dusty things are in place and our ceilings are in place, or the things that would cause dust are completed. Common ceiling grid and lighting install, as you can see, is coming along once we have the ceilings in place there as well. And then, as I'd mentioned, the classroom inspections are complete. So now you can get a sense, as having now been in here for the tour, of what the scale means. So you're seeing here a shot down the classrooms where you've been seeing it before. These soffits now give you an idea as to just how big those individual classrooms are going to be. And what a wonderful multi-use learning space and flexible use learning space this design is going to provide for us. There's Dr. Preisler.
Well, I was in there and I saw these gentlemen working, and it struck me how the perspective of having a person there gave better view of the size of this proscenium and stage. And so, yeah, I convinced someone to take a picture of me, and the first one I'm standing with my arms at my side, I'm like, okay, that didn't do it. So how can we kind of give this look? But I mean, it's incredible.
It is.
And as we see how close our audience will be to have to a performance of this magnitude and that kind of a stage, it's incredible and yet intimate. People will really feel a part of things with that kind of a house setup, and that was our hope.
Yep.
We didn't want someone so far away they couldn't hear or see their child's face. I mean, Well, they'll see them unless they're in the orchestra pit. They won't see them.
So now, Dr. Preisler, I can put together, I said, what song was in your head when you were on stage, right? And you said The Sound of Music, and of course, this is the mountaintop moment, right? So, very cool. Yeah, it really gives you a sense of how beautiful this thing's going to be when it's done. And here we have the ag shop. This is one of the elephant doors to the outside, and the door that's going to the inside, where there's going to be a car lift coming in the next couple of weeks to do auto work and things of that sort in the ag shop. Look ahead, I'm going to go very quickly. Steve gives us a great detail, as I have always told you. So in Area A, we've got staged sprinkler system being done up above, duct work in the ceilings, and electrical gear work. Electrical gears like transformers, boxes, pans, and breakers, things of that sort. Air and vapor barrier are going to go on that last classroom before we get the exterior brick. The exterior brick was delivered late last week, and everything is on site to finish up that last classroom that they just started, 12 days ago. Just amazing how quick they've been moving. So the next week of the 17th, we're looking at all of the ductwork in Area A. That's overhead work being done by our HVAC contractors. And locker room and shop areas. They did cut the wall open between the intersection area and what's going to be the new changing rooms. That was remarkable to see happen as well. Just this very large slab of precast concrete laying on the ground. So the guys are really working hard. And what I'm noticing too is we're getting more trades more regularly in these spaces, and they're moving at a quicker pace. So the timeline is looking really good. This is absolutely stunning. This entryway came together so nice. When you walk up that hall, or that sidewalk going in by the auditorium and the gymnasium there at the K8, it's just really beautiful brickwork on the exterior. Here you're seeing the windows on the south side finally removed. Those are those lintels we've been talking about for about 6 months. Now we can actually see those things. The repair work isn't going to be as extensive as it could have been, and we're really happy about that. And it's going to provide a good long-term solution for this wing, this renovation. This is the old, for people that may have been around in Montgomery, this was the old greenhouse area, right? So there was some pavers in here, and it was a break room for the custodial team. This is being converted into that sibling care unit. So the wall here is facing to the south, and this wall over here is actually part of Eric Schroeder's office, which is being renovated into a conference room. So those are the two combined spaces adjacent to each other. And our look ahead with Luke's team over at the K8, we're looking at installing the two-piece bar joists and the roofing system on top of the bar joists and roof decking, and then also continuing to do some of the lighter demo and demolition work that was yet to be done. They've got some concrete sawing to do to expose some under the pad ductwork and things of that sort from our old system that need demolition. Then they can start rebuilding. So that's moving along very nicely. Dr. Preisler, I don't know, wasn't this shocking when you walked in there the first day? It is unrecognizable, which is in a good way. We're not saying that. Right now you're seeing this in a demolished state, but it's hard when you go into the main office door now, Dale, in the hallway on the south side, to really have a sense of perspective of what was ever there. It's just so neat. And the way the flow of this office is going to turn out, now that we see the walls gone, is going to work very well for this site in accomplishing that secured entry that we've been working towards. This is a demolition of the hallways upstairs from the band room down. You can see the band room renovation is well on its way. They were putting up soft walls, sheetrock, and metal studs, and doing some rough-ins for electrical there. We retained as much of the ceiling pads as we could for those areas that we want to potentially replace some old types of ceiling tile. And so they're holding the best of the best tiles back, which are in good condition, so we're not wasting those materials. And then our look ahead here, this is the first time you're seeing a look ahead for La Center, so I kind of butchered the submission that our contractor gave us, but it'll give you a sense. So Area D, when we reference Area D, that's the band room and choir room area and hallway. From the threshold where the band and choir room is, we go into Area E, which is instructional, and C, which is the office. And you can see that the majority of that was heavy demolition, removal, preparation for hydronics, piping, HVAC ductwork, and all of the materials that have to go back into our ceilings before we actually rebuild those. Do you guys have any questions or thoughts, final thoughts?
Wow,
Isn't this fun?
it is.
It really is.
Really cool.
Yeah, I have to pinch myself before this meeting sometimes. So, thank you for your time.
Thank
Yep.
you, Carl.
Thank you, Carl.
I think the piece that was so striking, with our, Lonsdale came on first, and, well, the roof, of course, first, which was a good stepping stone into this, and then Lonsdale with the additions, high school with the additions, but when we moved to these two renovation projects, to see walls just completely torn down, and, the old axes and hammers, and then they're like, well, that's not working, so they're bringing in vehicles that are just knocking these walls down, and you're just like, wow. It really is. It's a whole different type of project. Mm-hmm. And I think as much as people had a good eye, I think, of what the classroom additions would be, or even the high school, I have to admit, I think our two renovations with the secured entry of the office and the center and that early learning area in Montgomery are going to be the most shocking for people. Not that the Performing Arts Center is going to be glorious and the classrooms are going to be glorious, but they're going to be like, I couldn't have imagined how this was really going to be. So, pretty exciting.
Very good. Thank you, both of you. End of the year enrollment.
Our end of the year enrollment was a little trickier to do since we ended the year so early. So, and yet it will show that even in that short amount of time, there is movement that happens, and it kind of happens every day, quite honestly. So it's called June 1st, but it wasn't really June 1st. We did it a few days before the May 21st so that we still had our seniors here. Of course, we didn't want to lose that. So you can see within our K4s, we increased one. Our 5-6s, we increased one. Our 7-8, we increased one. And at our high school, we stayed flat, which is, good for the end of the year as well. Mm-hmm. So we had a slight increase here at the end. Last year, as our end of the year, interestingly, I don't have the data on the end of the year. We must have been so close to the May ending. So 2 years ago, our end of the year was 1830. Prior to that was 1843, 1844, 1788, and 1756. So, and we had the large increases early in Tri-City United, and I think the best story here is that we'll hold steady. It'd be great to continue to have that, those big jumps in enrollment, which we know are so important, and hopeful with the continued work we're doing and course offerings, and even with soccer and such, that they may draw some more students and everything. But it's kind of a hold steady kind of thing.
Very good. Thank you. Committee report, updates. Southwest Metro, there's quite a bit of information that we'll be talking about here later that was brought up at that meeting that Superintendent Preisler and Jean will be sharing with you. As far as the meeting itself, kind of interesting in the fact that we did have 2 students from Tri-City United that graduated from the New Beginnings, but Superintendent Preisler and I, they were supposed to walk up there as well, but they walked here, so we were kind of confused on, you can't walk twice. That's a rule. They have that. And then there was another student, can't remember what that area was. And then the big thing that I brought back to Superintendent Preisler that she gave to our administrative people is all of the opportunities for summer education for our teachers. I think that's something that sometimes is truly overlooked by Southwest, what they do provide. One of the things, they have a 1-day thing that if you are not doing your due diligence and keeping up with your contract, as your licensure, you can get it completed in one full day up there. It's a full day, but you can get it done. And I just think some of those type of things that Southwest Metro provides for our teachers truly do get overlooked. Other than that, it was, a typical end of the meeting. We do not have a meeting in June or July. We'll start back up in August again.
Yes, and I did send that to all of our staff in the event that we have any, say, paraprofessionals who might be interested in some trainings that may lead them to consider getting teaching licenses and such too. So.
Yep.
And we kind of covered Q-Comp. Thank you, Matt.
Good to go.
Because that's really what we talked
Yep.
about, was kind of end of the year wrapping up and scheduling out our summer pre-planning for next year.
Very good. Thank you, Michelle. New business. Under new business, the first item that we have here is to approve the TCU K8/K6 student handbooks in our buildings. I will entertain a motion.
Molly, would you like to just speak to any major changes or anything, or if this is it, that's fine too?
Yeah, we don't have any major changes this year. We felt that the handbook still aligns with all the board approved policies. And so the changes that are reflected are currently just the lunch increases.
Sweet. Wow.
I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Kevin. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Krista. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries 5-0. Next is the looking at the TCU 9-12 student handbooks. We have two gentlemen moving towards us. So.
with Sam. Good evening, board and Dr. Presley. Not a ton of changes. Again, some updates depending on any sort of policies that may have been changed. Did take a look at a lot of the policies that are in there, and speak with Dr. Preissler, policy committee. We might have a couple things to discuss as we move forward, looking at just how we're operating, how other schools are operating, and what our policies say and what MSBA says. So there's some things we know that we can probably work together on, but we updated that with the current board policies and references. Corresponding dates, of course, were changed, and then just a few sections where there were some things added or subtracted. You can see there I just copied and pasted out of our Google Doc that kind of showed the history of what we deleted. Went through the lunch procedure with the help of Brenda and Amy, helping us to get rid of some things that were probably long overdue to be removed. And moving on down to cheating and plagiarism, we did try to stay as current as we can with using electronic devices. In fact, the ACT, I believe, is moving to electronic testing next year rather than the paper test that we all, if you took that test, that we all took. Moving to a device now. So we just added a couple things at the last two bullet points. One of them is partially in blue, just accessing websites when taking an assessment, since a lot of them are computer-based now, or unauthorized websites when testing on electronic devices. The next one came from a combination of high school and board action, and that was the parking changes that you approved at the last meeting, talking about the fee, now based on a tiered parking system with the closest spots to the building at the highest cost. Priority be based on the oldest grade level having the first choice of those chosen tiers. Tier fees and locations can be found on the school website, so we'll have, I think she's already got it out there because the letters have gone home. Ms. Sherry put that out on the school website for those kinds of things. So just kind of went through the rules and guidelines and made sure those were up to date as much as we could there. So shortened that one up a little bit. We did add in one inappropriate behavior tied to social media and internet violations, whether it's done on a personal cell phone or electronic device. That could be our school devices, it could be their personal devices. But if those sorts of things are done during the school day or are disrupting the learning environment for our students, they become a school issue. So we wanted to have something there that was a little bit more specific to social media, internet use, And talking about inappropriate activities, we left that a little bit wide open there because there are so many different things that we run across that we're seeing now that we have to address. And obviously it can tie back to harassing and bullying and some of those sorts of things in some places if it's a continued effort. So just some basic language there. We'll see how it goes this year and use that. And if we need to make changes or get more specific, we may bring some more next year. The section below was removed based on your decision as a board to change our graduation requirements. So we added in a little bit there in in yellow. Students need to the requirements that are set by the TCU Board of Education and Minnesota Department of Ed. We will be planning on posting those on our TCU website, probably under our counseling page, because if you remember, we have scaled back in a stepping system of the requirements. So our seniors graduating next year in the spring of 2020 will have slightly different graduation requirements than those in 2021. 2022, I think we then become stable again. So we will have specific graduation requirements for those few specific graduating years as we build towards that. So we did eliminate most of that. There's quite a bit there. Whoever's driving, Terry, that kind of goes on below that, just talking about all the required courses and those kinds of things. So, yeah. So that's the update. Those are the major things there. Other little tweaks and dates and names and wording and those kind of things.
Vapes.
Adding in some vape things specifically in tobacco in certain areas. Those are the bigger ones.
For the ACTs, will they all use their own devices now?
They'll use the district-owned Chromebooks. We're still deciding whether for the fall practice tests. Our challenge there is we don't get that practice test from ACT. There's some different sites out there, but those sites also provide the answers. So we may stick with the paper copy for the fall test because it's very easy and very quickly. You can click on number 3 and see its letter C, and all of a sudden our validity of our practice test scores kind of goes out the window. And that's not good. So, but spring testing, we are signed up for the ACT online, which they've been doing for a couple of years. We just, with our situation enrolling in the Chromebooks and not really having a spot in the Legion Hall that could really handle that type of bandwidth. So we're counting on Carl to make sure we've got a building here that can handle that kind of bandwidth. He says,
Carl's got it.
yes.
Well, and I believe it is in a testing week, so if we needed to, we could have multiple sessions. The idea was to be able to use that new classroom wing addition. Need to move some tables around so we make ACT requirements and everything, but or we may have, because of the numbers of sessions, the flexibility to use some of our regular classrooms now. I don't know. That will be a wonderful
Schedule build.
puzzle to put together.
Well, we're just going to put the other 3 grades in the auditorium.
All right.
Mr. Fitterer put on a play.
It is amazing that ACT has given a week, though, because that's not their history. Everybody starts the test at the same time, and within a half hour, everybody ends the test. And they do that because the Eastern Standard Time, they'll have their test done before a Pacific Standard Time, because there's been all kinds of things throughout history. So this has been interesting. Plus, you had the big scandal of college entrance by those of the rich and the famous, and so all that plays in. So it's really kind of amazing that they've opened it up to a week.
Good deal.
Any other questions, board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the TCU 9-12 student handbook for next year.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Marcia, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Michelle.
Sorry.
Sorry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Yeah.
Next is the motion to approve the 2019-2020 membership in the Minnesota State High School League.
This is an annual renewal. We do see a slight increase, up $220 for next year due to the addition of girls and boys soccer. The fee is typically $110 per activity, and TCU will have 24 activities this next school year.
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve the 2019-2020 membership to the Minnesota High School League.
Make a motion.
Motion by Krista. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Marcia. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries 5-0. Next, to approve the 2019-2000 fundraisers.
Mr. Johnson, do we have any major changes for?
Not one,
Okay, just names of people.
just the names of the advisors.
If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the 2019-2020 fundraisers for TCU.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Kevin.
I'll
Is there-
second.
Second by Michelle. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries 5-0. Motion needed to approve the 2019-2020 overnight trips.
Again, Mr. Johnson, are there any changes to this?
Only one is the robotics sometimes falls on the end of January or early February, so that's the only thing I changed, just because it's been both in the last 2 years, so.
Once again, I'll entertain a motion to approve the 2019-2020 overnight trips.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Michelle, second by Krista. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Motion to approve the May 2019 donation of $800.
And this is our first time having this aspect. Gina, are you wanting to speak to this? You sure can.
Not necessarily, but I certainly can.
You'll have plenty to talk about.
Yeah, I have plenty to talk about, so just thought I'd just mosey on up
Okay.
here. Yeah, so this is new for the policy change that was made, and will be something that hopefully we'll be presenting each month. So hopefully we'll have donations from our generous community to present each month.
And this was part of the Titan Pride Awards, actually, just recognizing those groups, correct?
That's right.
Any other questions of Jean? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the two.
I have a quick question. This
Yes.
is a resolution, so isn't this like a roll call vote and everything? I mean, isn't that something that we have to do? Yes? Okay.
And we should have our clerk simply, rather than reading the whole thing, I think you can go right to the be it resolved.
All right, be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District number 2905 accept the appreciation, the following gifts, donations, and permit their use as designated by the donors.
So, being a resolution, it will be a roll call vote. Marcia?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Krista?
Yes,
And I also vote yes.
Dale seconded it?
I did.
Krista seconded.
Well, she presented the
I mean,
resolution.
She presented the resolution.
I'll second it.
All
Okay.
right.
Sorry, this is our first time with this, and so the resolution, forget that this has to be a resolution each time. But I think it's okay to only read the third paragraph of it, so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Yep, no, thank you, Marcia, for also bringing that up. 5-0. Now, the next one is to approve the resolution of approving the Southwest Metro Intermediate School District number 288 long-term facilities maintenance program budget and authorization of the inclusion and appropriated shares of those projects in the district application for long-term facility maintenance revenue. And to this, we'll have the resolution, and then we can have a discussion, and then a second, if you would, please.
We're in the same thing you read. Resolution approving Southwest Metro Intermediate School District number 288 long-term facility maintenance program budget and authorizing the inclusion of appropriate, oh my gosh. Yeah, proportionate, hey there. Share of those projects in the district's application for long-term facility maintenance revenue.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Kevin. Now, discussion of this.
Sure, I'm with you until here through the end of the meeting, so I'll introduce myself once, and I'm Jean Kapp, Director of Business Services for Tri-City United. So Superintendent Preisler, members of the board, I'm recommending for your approval 2 resolutions pertaining to Tri-City United's membership in the Southwest Metro Co-op, the long-term facility maintenance and safe schools. TCU is one of 11 member districts of the Southwest Metro Co-op. As per Minnesota statute, co-ops and intermediate districts are able to access LTFM and safe school funds. In order for Southwest Metro to access these funds, each member school district must acknowledge annual approval through resolution. So that's the steps that we'll take tonight. So on the Southwest Metro long-term facility maintenance levy, I'm requesting approval of the Southwest Metro long-term facility maintenance program budget and the inclusion of proportionate share of those projects in the TCU application for LTFM revenue. This funding ensures safe, secure, and healthy facilities for our students attending Southwest Metro programs. The Southwest Metro LTFM budget for fiscal year 21 is $275,000. Tri-City United's share is $12,124.32, or 4.41%, which is a decline from the fiscal year 20 amounts of $15,183.58, or 6.07%. The percentage is based upon the fiscal year 18 member usage of SPED, general education, vocational services. If approved, this proportionate share will be included in the district's 19 Pay 20 levy, which funds the 2021 fiscal year 21 school year. So come directly through our levy, and then is routed to Southwest Metro, or paid to Southwest Metro by the business office. It's long-term facility maintenance. It's used for the same things that our long-term facility maintenance money is used for. I'll go and talk to you at Southwest Metro and then, or the safe schools next, right now, and then we can do that separately, or how do you want to do it?
Let's do the vote on this one
great.
first. Roll call vote then once again. The resolution has been read and seconded. Kevin?
Yes.
Krista?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
And Marcia?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Resolution passes 5-0.
Okay, great. So moving on to Southwest Metro Safe Schools. The Southwest Metro Safe Schools budget for fiscal year 21 is $220,000. TCU's share is $9,699.46, or again, the same 4.41%. If approved, this proportionate share will be included in the district's 19 Pay 20 levy, which funds the 2021 school year.
If you would, please.
Yeah, so the resolution approving Southwest Metro Intermediate School District number 288 Safe Schools program and authorizing the inclusion of a proportionate share of those projects in the district's pay 2020 levy.
Is there a second?
I'll do it.
Marcia, I believe. Roll call vote again, this time. Marcia?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Krista?
Yes.
And myself is a yes. Resolution passed 5-0. Next item, motion to renew our policies with the National Insurance Service for life, accidental death, dismemberment, long-term disability, and long-term insurance coverage.
Great. So I'm seeking the board's approval to renew our policies with National Insurance Services for life, accidental death and dismemberment, and long-term disability insurance coverage. There's no rate changes on either policy. LTD is a 3-year guarantee, next up for renewal in September of 2020. life and accidental death is a 2-year rate guarantee, next up for renewal in, I think I flipped those, 2021. By approving this renewal and TCU's submission to NIS of signed agreements, we are acknowledging the 3-year and 2-year commitments to national insurance services.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Kevin. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Krista. Any further discussion or questions?
It's nice to see a no rate change on something and also caps for the next years. We don't see that too often.
Anything else?
Yay.
Win-win, yes.
That's right.
A big piece of that, oh, nope, that's in workman's comp next. I'm ahead of myself.
Yes. Okay.
If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries 5-0. Next, to remain with, is that
Voller.
Bakke Insurance as Tri-City United agent through coverage of Martel Insurance for property, liability, casualty, and auto, and SFM Mutual Insurance for workers' compensation coverage.
Yes, thank you. So, I'm seeking your approval to remain with Voller Insurance for TCU's agent for the aforementioned insurance coverages. We have found Voller to be a highly service-oriented and supportive in all areas of service provided. This plan year runs from July 1, 2019 to June 30th, 2020. This proposal is actually a decrease in annual premiums of $23,211 for a total cost of $202,223. This savings is the result of a $31,798 decrease in workers' compensation premium due to a reduction in our experience modifier from to a 1.04 from a 1.41. This reduction of TCU's EMOD is due in large part to the work of Maggie Graham, TCU HR payroll, the TCU Safety Committee, and the district's decision last year to change the worker compensation agency to SFM Mutual Insurance, who has proven to be a very responsive and proactive partner to TCU. The savings in work comp insurance were partially offset by increases in other policy areas. And this does not include does not yet incorporate the additional square footage currently being added to TCU Lonsdale and TCU High School. That will be factored in once TCU receives occupancy permits, and I estimate the impact to be approximately $6,000. So it's very good news. It's amazing to see the impact of having the EMOD improvement. I reported the opposite last year and an increase, and then we actually increased further to go with SFM, which has a bit better service. Yeah, we've been very lucky. So it's partially luck and partially a lot of work. So.
Gene, that increase that you're, approximately saying of $6,000,
yep.
Will that occur, upon our starting to occupy that, or will it be at our next renewal?
It'll occur when we start to occupy. So that's $6,000 is probably an annual estimate. I don't think I adjusted, for a portion of a year, but that's the annual. What I estimate the annual impact will be for adding the square footage, just as additional property that we need to insure and value to our buildings that we insure. So, but we didn't want to do it before we had to. Save a little bit.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Michelle,
I'll second it.
second by Marcia. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next, to approve the annual renewal of the Tri-City United Food Service with Tater Incorporated.
Great. I'm recommending your approval of the annual renewal for Tri-City United's food service contract with Taher Inc. This agreement authorizes Taher to exclusively manage and operate the food service offered by TCU. This is the 4th year of the contract renewal with Taher, and at fiscal year 21 will be a mandatory bid year. The fees are assessed as a fee per meal served, and the renewal does include a 2.5% increase to $17 1715.1715. You can see the table below for a review of the Tahoe management fees. And during the 17-18 school year, TCU served 240,000 lunches and 57,000 breakfast meals.
It's a lot.
Yes. I will entertain motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Krista,
I'll second.
second by Michelle. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next is to approve the resolution reauthorizing the previous authorized board approved referendum authority. I think, Krista, you have that?
Yep. So it's the resolution for reauthorizing a previously authorized board-approved referendum authority.
Any
Great.
discussion to that one?
I will add, I am recommending your approval of this resolution to reauthorize the board-approved referendum authority in the amount of $300 per adjusted pupil unit. This current board approved authority expires after fiscal year 20. Due to the recent legislative changes, your action is required to ensure there is no loss of revenue. This is not an increase to operating levy authority, nor will it result in the levying of additional dollars by TCU. This is simply to maintain current operating levy authority with an inflationary component and funding. Failure to approve this resolution will result in the loss of district revenue of $20,785 in fiscal year 21. These funds are equalized, meaning a portion of the funding is from state aid, an estimated 37%, and the remaining from local levy. These revenue calculations are based on estimated adjusted pupil unit. So in fiscal year 20, TCU's operating levy and local optional revenue is $732 per APU. And you can see the breakdown there below of what pieces make up our operating levy. So 424 is local optional revenue, and that's the minimum that every school district would take, and then 300 for the board approval, and 8.19 related to a previous district voter approved levy. The aforementioned recent legislative changes remove the board approval operating levy authority and increase the local optional revenue authority by $300 per APU for fiscal year 2021. It is imperative the school board approve operating levy authority is in place via this resolution being considered when MDE makes the initial calculation based on the new legislative formula to local optional revenue and operating levy authority in fiscal year 21. After the new calculation is made, TCU's operating levy and local optional revenue authority in fiscal year 21 is estimated to be $310.31 per APU, and you can see the table breakdown of what that'll be comprised of. So essentially, the board approval $300 will now roll into local optional revenue. So that's $724. Yep. And here's just a table I've given just for some discussion on TCU's fiscal year 19 operating levy and local optional revenue authority as compared to district averages. So you can see ours in bold, and then average of all districts, the metro and rural. So we are at 729. So as you notice, that number is changing a bit. That's the inflationary component that I'm mentioning, but still well below averages in all three of these areas.
Superintendent Preisler, any comments to any of that?
Well, I bring people back once again to some history of Tri-City United as came into consolidation with all of the studies and work that was done at that point, and I still I remember having lived in the communities and hearing the reports that it was projected at that point that in 2015 Tri-City United would have to be coming out with an operating levy for voter approval. We are now at 2019 and have yet to do that. And that is definitely due to the large increased enrollment we had in our, excuse me, in our first years as Tri-City United. And anytime as we consider revenues, our buckets are enrollment, state aid, and local operating levy. And so the enrollment really pulled things along. The state aid, as Jean reported earlier, was or has shared in the past and will again in the adopted budget. It's at 2%, which sounds like a lot of dollars, but we also know that costs of anything is higher than 2%. And so that gets eaten up real fast. thus laying the groundwork on if you do not have large increases in enrollment, which we had that and we're holding steady, but it's not growing in that large amounts, which would be unrealistic in our area. We don't see any districts having that kind of enrollment growth. We really saw an anomaly in our first years. And so when we take a look at this kind of comparative in operating levy compared to rural and metro districts or all districts, even if as we take a look in future times here of just those who are neighboring us, we are significantly lower than every neighboring school district except for one. And that district has also been experiencing operational challenges in the last few years. We, on the other hand, have been building programs. We've been asked to have competitive salaries. We've done that. We've added programming. We've added opportunities. But those things all do come at a cost, and without large increases from the state aid or large increases in enrollment, the third bucket is operating levy areas, and one that we are working hard to stave off as long as we can, but at some point it will catch up with us.
This was also the one item that was at the state legislature that they were entertaining the idea to give to the board our ability to increase this without taking it to a vote, to a voter's approval. And unfortunately, it did not make, the final omnibus bill part of that, which Superintendent Price continues to put pressure on us as a school district. Any other questions? If not, I will entertain a motion to the resolution. Oh, I guess that resolution. Who seconded?
I will second it.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Second by Kevin. All those in favor, which will be a roll call vote again. Kevin?
Yes.
Krista?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Resolution is passed 5-0. Another resolution being brought forward.
The resolution regarding board control of extracurricular activities.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Kevin. And now, any questions or discussion about this one? Explanation, please.
Yes, I'll provide context. So Superintendent Price and members of the board, I'm recommending your approval of the resolution regarding board control of extracurricular activities. Recent changes in laws require changes to the accounting for student activity funds. Going forward, school boards must take charge of and control all student activities in the district, and all money received or expended for extracurricular activities must be recorded using the same processes as other revenue and expenditures by the district. This change is the result of the publication of the GASB Statement Number 24, and the objective of the statement is to improve guidance regarding identification of fiduciary activities for accounting and financial reporting purposes and how those activities should be reported. This change will impact TCU's 29 student activity accounts, which include things like FFA, BPA, class years, and student council, among others. This change does not impact external organizations such as booster clubs and PTOs. This is
Any other questions? Once again, this will be a roll call vote. Marcia?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Krista?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. 5-0, the resolution. Next item is the approval of the fiscal year 2020 budget.
great. Superintendent Preisler, members of the board, I'm requesting your approval of the fiscal year 20 budget for the Tri-City United School District. This budget is built with input from the administrators from our building sites, departments, and programs, and falls within the framework and recommendations of the Finance Committee. You have in front of you our typical view of our budget. So we'll be speaking to that a little bit here in this conversation. So the budget consists of 5 funds. The fiscal year 20 budget starting balance is the fiscal year 19 revised budget estimate ending balance, with the exception of Fund 6, Revenue estimates are based upon state, local, and federal funding sources, as well as other local revenue. Expenditure estimates are based upon projected staffing and programming as approved by the school board, and also assumptions of operational expenditures. The fiscal year 20 budget begins on July 1, 2019, and ends on June 30th, 2020. The district typically does submit a revised budget during the second half of the fiscal year. I'm going to give a brief overview of each fund. So I'll start with the general fund, Fund 1, General Education. So the fiscal year 20 budget estimates a Fund 1 spending deficit. The two most critical drivers of the fiscal year 20 budget are enrollment and staff salary and benefit estimates. I have a table here, but it's approximately 85% of Fund 1 revenue is in the form of state aid, and 10% is from local levy. The remainder is federal and other local. The Minnesota State Legislature approved a 2% increase in the funding formula allowance for fiscal year 20. All things equal, this would result in a stated increase of approximately $250,000. Despite that increase, funding has not kept pace with costs. Staff salaries and benefits account for approximately 75% of Fund 1 expenditures. Investing in high-quality staff and a competitive labor market are factors for the district. TCU has continued to expand academic and extracurricular activities for students. The fiscal year 20 budget has an estimated fund balance of 21.6%, and the TCU fund balance policy requires a minimum of 17%. The fiscal year 20 budget has an unassigned spending deficit of $540,000. Key factors are I can describe the key factors. So as I said, enrollment, the budget is built with using the enrollment assumption of 1,848 adjusted average daily membership, which calculates to 2016 adjusted pupil units at the state funding formula of $6,438 per APU. The budget incorporates known contract agreements and includes an estimate for pending contracts, the largest of which being the EA contract at the board-approved staffing levels. Benefits, the impact of the 1920 health insurance premium increases are reflected in the budget per current contract contribution rates. And health insurance enrollment estimates are subject to change as new staff join TCU and throughout the year. Other key expenditures for the district are operating capital, which is restricted. It's planned to have a decrease in spending in fiscal year 20 in anticipation of a large fiscal year 21 capital outlay as the district reviews high investment curriculum areas such as mathematics. LTFM, which is also restricted, estimated in fiscal year 21 there will be a reduction in the LTFM restricted fund balance as a result of Fund 1 LTFM dollars dedicated for construction adjacent expenditures. These are non-recurring expenditures. Back under unassigned, busing. Busing is our single largest purchase service for the district, and it accounts for approximately 40% of Fund 1 purchase service expenditures, and the current Palmer contract expires this year. The fiscal year 20 budget estimates the impact of the pending contract for the next year. And then insurance, which is also under unassigned, as described earlier in this board meeting, was also included. It's a summary of Fund 1. Under Fund 2, the budget is built in partnership with TAHR, and revenue estimates are based on anticipated meals served. The board previously approved a 10-cent increase to all lunch prices that was mandated by the paid lunch equity provision, and food costs and staff salary and benefits make up the bulk of the anticipated expenditures for fiscal year 20. Under community ed, budget considerations, Community Ed is currently implementing programming expansions of Little Titan School Readiness and Kids Zone programming. In the 1920 school year, TCU will offer 5-day school readiness programming at all 3 TCU sites and will offer childcare for preschool agers, otherwise referred to as RAP. As a result of this expansion, community education revenues and expenditures are both anticipated to increase. Revenue is estimated based on local levy funding, which is largely unchanged, and then enrollment and program participation. Staffing costs will rise due to an increase in service hours as a result of additional programming hours and contract changes. As projected at the time of board approval of this program expansion, we are anticipating a first-year spending deficit. Participation above estimated levels will reduce this deficit, and the Community Ed Office continues to work to promote the programs TCU has to offer to our community. Under Fund 6, this is our construction fund, and essentially it's built to assume that we will fully deplete all of our construction spending as we wrap up projects throughout fiscal year 20, but timing shifts in this summer may impact this one substantially in terms of the estimate, just on a timing, fiscal year 19 versus fiscal year 20. Under Debt Service Fund 7, the levy authority allows us to levy for 105% of our debt payments to cover any delinquencies. Any overpayment is corrected in future years, and this Fund 7 balance will continue to grow in anticipation of a 2027 payment of the district's 2010A bond, which is structured as a sinking fund payment. And this will be the first year that TCU makes both principal and interest payments on our Series 2018A and 2018B bonds. That's my summary. Do you have any questions for me regarding the fiscal year 20 budget?
Any questions? Superintendent Preisler?
I just want to comment on the work that has been going on throughout this spring and working hard to anticipate the other increases that we knew were coming, in particular with ends of contracts and that, but also recognizing that, we had a winter here of, more snow than we've seen in a mighty long time, which, as you can imagine, affected snow removal budgets. We had temperatures that were well below what is typical, which increased then heating costs. So those are all areas that we knew were going to have some impacts, and as you can see, we usually typically look at our unassigned fund balance as the whole, and yes, it does show our expenditures outpacing our revenues projection. Jean's worked really hard to look through every line, and we do always try to budget conservatively, but we'll say that this is probably going to be one of our tighter budgets to have to stick to. Did not do much cush, just to be really very realistic of where we are and the work that we're going to need to do going forward. And so enrollment-driven staffing is going to be a must, taking a look in each corners and each areas and each line items, but confidence to do our due diligence in serving our students at a high level.
Any other questions by the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year budget for 2020.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Marcia, is there a second? Second by Krista. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes 5-0. Just a reminder again, our June work session will be then in Lonsdale on the 24th at 6 o'clock. Once again, the reasoning is that we will be very near completion of that, and we can then have a tour of that facility. Is why it's being moved there for further information.
And since all of our work sessions and board meetings were approved at the organizational meeting in January, we would request that we take board action on this location move.
I'll make that motion.
Right.
I'll second.
Second. The work session then will be moved to Lonsdale on June 24th, starting at 6 o'clock. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? One last thing, I'm sure you saw it in your emails. Maggie Grimm is asking if you would please turn in your time sheets, if that's something you want to do, by the end of the month. This time I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:57. Motion by Kevin. Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Motion second by Marcia. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries 5-0. Thank you all for coming.